So there are a bunch of terminal emulators out there, which really I think we should just call termulators, if you ask me. But fun fact, I just thought of termulator, and that's actually the name of a terminal emulator for Windows. But anyway, that does have to do with the topic that we are going to talk about today. Terminal emulators, or termulators, in my opinion, which is what it should be called. There are a bunch of terminals, right? We've got some heavy hitters like Xterm or Terminator. We've also got terminal emulators that are drop-down terminals like Guac or Tilda. We've even got super lean terminals like ST. But then we've also got two terminals which I have yet to name that are very popular, especially in the tiling window manager crowd: Alacrity and Kitty. Now, I've used Alacrity for a while now, for over almost a year and a half, probably almost 2 years, and I really like it. I don't use it like I'm not a developer or anything, right? So it's not like I'm using it to code a bunch of projects and everything. Really, what I use is just NeoVim to write and to put together scripts, that kind of thing. So this is coming from the perspective of just a guy who likes to create videos, because I love Linux and everything, but I like creating videos more than I like Linux, honestly. I just really like using Linux as well. So this is not from the perspective of like some web developer or back-end developer or anything like that, okay? But Alacrity out of the box is almost, I don't want to say lean, it's not like ST or anything, but there's a lot less that you can do with Alacrity compared to Kitty. Now, these two terminals are compared a lot of the time. I am going to do some comparing, I'm sure, in this video, but that's not what this video is. It's just because I've used Alacrity for a while and now jumping over to Kitty. There's some things that I really do like about Kitty. And of course, because they're two very popular terminals, they are compared together. But again, they're compared against each other. But that's not what this video is, right? That's what I'm saying. So we're going to talk about Kitty. I want to bring something up, not like history or anything about Kitty, but just something about the author. And then after that, we'll jump over to the computer, and I'll just show you the few things that I really like about Kitty. Now, Kitty is a GPU-accelerated terminal emulator, which was actually created by a guy named Covid Goyle. No idea how to pronounce that name. Here's how it's spelled. How do you say that? It's COVID, right? Or maybe the K is silent. It's like Ovid or something. I don't know. I would really like to know how to pronounce this dude's name. Came out with Kitty back in 2017. Kitty is written in a mix of C, Python, and Go, which, if that means anything to you, that means anything to you. It does share the same name as this Windows application called Kitty. It's spelt a little bit differently, but that is a Telnet or SSH client for Windows. And so, yeah, it has nothing to do. It's no relation to that except for the name. I just saw that on Wikipedia, so I figured I'd throw that in there. But before I tell you what I like about Kitty, I gotta let you know that the creator doesn't give a shit. He doesn't care if you like Kitty, if you don't like Kitty. He really doesn't. Because I guess, and this was not too long ago, but somebody found out that there was actually a phone home feature within the Kitty configuration. There's a line in the config file that will actually enable Kitty to send you notifications on your desktop whenever there's an upgrade for Kitty. Usually, I'm kind of the guy that just like, it is what it is, I mean, the guy created it. He can kind of do what he wants to do. But the Linux community was kind of up in arms about it because it's not like he says anything about it, and it's an opt-out feature. So by default, this notification update, or this update notifier, is on by default, which means it's going to touch base with a third-party server, and this kind of goes against the whole Linux community, right? It's kind of weird to put in a setting in your open source program that phones home, especially if you don't just come out and say something about it. It'd be one thing, if that was the first thing that, or if you made that obvious and was like, hey, just so you know, you can be updated, or you can be notified whenever Kitty has an update but it's going to phone home. Do you want this feature enabled or not? But it's actually an opt-out, so it's on by default, which means you have to go into your config file and take that setting out or change that setting so that it doesn't phone home, which is kind of, I mean, there's a lot of shit in the world to get upset about more so than this, but I can understand why that put a bad taste in people's mouth, because I mean, it's the Linux community, the FOSS community, the open source community, you know, they kind of go against the whole telemetry phoning home, especially if it's an opt-out. You know, the Linux community is more so an opt-in crowd. They like to have the choice of, like, if you want that feature, you have to opt in. You know, Apple and all the Google, they all do the opt-out things where they're going to put all of these, they're going to switch these settings on by default so that if you don't change them, they're just going to start sending telemetry and analytics right back to them about whatever you do, but you can go in and change them, right? So that's an opt-out. It's when there's a feature that's on and you have to actually go in and turn that off. And opt-in is like, hey, we have this feature. It's not on by default, so you don't have to do anything. But if you want it on, you can flip it on. You get what I'm saying? So, of course, you know, Google and Apple, big tech companies like that aren't going to put opt-ins because most of the people out there just don't care. They just use whatever program or device that they're using. They just use it. They're not going to go into the settings and switch shit off. So that's how they get your data. That's how they, you know, because they know that the majority of people aren't going to give a shit. Well, in the Linux community, people are going to give a shit. So I don't know why you would want to put an opt-out feature in your program. But other than that, which, of course, and I'll say it's super easy to disable it. I'll put the line that you need to put down in your config right here. You just put that in your config and it disables that feature, or anti-feature as some people have called it. So other than that, let's jump over to the computer and I'm going to tell you some things that I really like about Kitty. Alright, so I do apologize right now if obviously the quality has went down in video, and also if I've gotten a little bit quieter on the mic. That's just because the mic it's right up here above my laptop screen. I'm a little bit farther away instead of holding it right there, so you might have to turn your volume up a little bit. I'm going to try to crank it up in post anyway, so you don't have to worry about that, but just wanted to apologize. But okay, so the first thing that I really, really like about Kitty is that the documentation is just on point. I mean, if you go over to, here, I'll leave this link down below in the description, but it's not like it's just kitty.org or something like Alacrity's is. But the documentation is great. I mean, this is the front page, and you can see right here on the left, there is a bunch of things. This is just this is just an overview, the quick start, how to install Kitty. So it gives a little bit of the design philosophy. Obviously, Kitty is designed for power keyboard users. As you can see here, it says it's written, like I said earlier, it's written in a mix of C, Python, and Go. Yeah, and it's great. Like, I really think the documentation is really, really good for it, and it gives you all of these key bindings for a bunch of stuff that you can do right out of the box. Now, this is where I believe Kitty shines over Alacrity. Alacrity is pretty bare bones. I mean, maybe not compared to something like ST, of course, but you don't get any tabs, you don't have any window management. There's a lot of things. Like, you can do all of that in Alacrity, but you would need to install like a multiplexer like Tmux or something to be able to get tabs or multiple windows within one terminal session. You can't just do that right out of the box. And the really cool thing with Kitty is that you can. I didn't realize, I've never used tabs in my terminal ever in the past. Of course, you would think like, yeah, duh, that's a nice feature to have, but like, I just didn't use it. I just used multiple terminals, right? And usually I didn't need more than a couple of terminals at a time. I really like the tabs. The tab feature is just really, really good. Now, for those of you who don't know the difference between tabs and windows, I'll show you right now. We'll go back over to Kitty. So you can see this is one tab, right? And I've got one window within this one tab. If I do Control-Shift-Enter, that will actually open up another window within this terminal. So this is all still just one terminal, but I can do a bunch of different things. So I can go to, you know, my config directory here. So I've got my two windows here, and I have the second window focused. Now if I push Control Shift and the number 1, that'll go up to my next window. Now I could add another window here. So I've got 3 of them, right? Now if I do Control Shift 3, that's gonna go over here to that window, right? Now you can close all of these with Control Shift W, and that'll close one each at a time. So those are what windows are. Now I don't really use them all that much, but I use tabs a lot. Now instead of Control Shift Enter, if you hit Control Shift T, that will actually add another tab. So you can see right down here, I've got these two little like tilde marks or whatever. That just represents the home folder. And I can switch back and forth between them with Control Tab. So we're on our first tab, so we go to our config directory and we're in Qtile, right? And I've got my Qtile config open, but oh crap, I need to jump to a different tab, and now I can go over here, maybe go to my kitty config, right? And I've got that open. Now you can see right down here, you can see that I've got my config.py and my kitty.conf, and I can switch between those with Control Tab, or if you do Control Shift left and right arrows, that will also switch tabs. And I can add more tabs just with Control Shift T, maybe another one and another one. You can add a shit ton of tabs, right? And then you can all scroll through them. Yeah, and I really, really like this. Again, I used Alacrity for a long time before, you know, jumping over to Kitty, and I just never even thought to use tabs within my terminal. I've seen it, and I knew that you could do it, but I never had a reason to, so I never, you know, Alacrity doesn't come with tabs out of the box, and I didn't really have a specific reason to add something like tmux, so I just never did it. Now, using a terminal with tabs out of the box, I love it. I really do. It's really great. I mean, it's not like I have a bunch of terminals open at once for the most, like a lot of times I don't do that. At most I'll have 2 or 3 open, but it's still really cool to just have the tabs, right? I don't know, I really like it. And that's probably my favorite feature of Kitty. Now, like I said, there are a bunch of different features and stuff, but that one is for sure my favorite. But let's jump over here. We'll close these. Jump over here to the config file for Kitty. Now, the config file for Kitty is big. As you can see, it's like 2,372 lines of code. Or not really code, but it's mainly the reason for its big length, I guess, is because the comments on here are so well done from the author. Like if we go up here to fonts, right, and we unfold this, you can see I got my font family. Look at all of these comments, right? COVID or whatever. I would really like to know how to pronounce his name. The author of Kitty has done a fantastic job writing out comments and explaining what every line does and what you can do with the Kitty config file. So as you can see, we were just on the fonts, but you can also, there's cursor customization, scroll back, mouse, performance tuning, terminal bell, window layout, tab bar, color scheme, advanced, obviously, OS-specific tweaks, and keyboard shortcuts. I haven't messed around with everything, but of course the font, change the font. Cursor customization, this is actually one of the things that I really like about this too. I can't get it to work in Alacrity, even though there is a setting to change the color of your cursor. I was never able to get it to work I was able to change the type of cursor. You know, you can use, there's either block, underline, or beam, which is the same here in Kitty, but I could never get the color to work on Alacrity. But here you can. So that's a very small thing, and it doesn't really matter. It doesn't add really any benefits at all, I don't think. But I really like that. As you can see, I've changed it to this darker blue, this darker Nord blue. That's what I have it as. But I thought that was really cool. You can, of course, change the shape and whatnot, but I just keep the block. Sometimes I do the underline, but another thing that I changed was the terminal bell. I hate the terminal bell, so of course, no. Just that, like GNOME terminal does that all the time, or by default. It's like if you hit backspace too many times, it'll ring a bell. It's just so annoying. The tab bar, you can do a bunch of different things. This is not how they look by default. If you install Kitty, then you can see what they look by default. But I changed mine up a little bit. I do the power line style. You can do a few different things. So where does it say? Oh yeah, so there's 6 different tab bar styles, right? So there's fade, there's slant, separator, power line. Then you can also do a custom one, which is you can use like your own Python script or whatever, which is kind of cool. So if you really want to get into it. And then you can also hide them, which is cool if you want that clean look. And then you can just set like a key binding to show a list of your tabs. I personally would just rather have them down there at the bottom because, I mean, they don't take up much space. But let's see. So we'll try a different one. I want to show you what fade looks like. So we'll delete the power line, do fade, write that out, open up. So that's what fade looks like. You can see it's not bad. I kind of like it. I believe that is the default or something like that. It looks kind of like that. Maybe that's not the default, but that's what fade looks like. Oh yeah, so with the power line, you can either change it to like a slanted style. You can do angled or you can do round. So let's see what angled looks like. Go over here, go, sure, new tab. Okay, so that's like your normal power line or whatever it is, which isn't bad. I still kind of like the just the slant better. Kind of looks better to me than the whatever the hell you want to call this, angled. So next I wanted to see what the round looks like, which I do not think I'm going to like that at all, but still. Yeah, I mean, that's not horrible, I guess. Go over here. Yeah, I mean, that's not bad. The round actually doesn't look too bad, in my opinion. I still kind of like the slanted more than the round, but still, it kind of looks cool. But that just goes to show you that you do have options whenever it comes to the Kitty configuration file. Now, so I never really dived into the Alacrity config all that much. I know you can set different key bindings. I didn't use it. I didn't go that deep with it, right? I really just used it for NeoVim, to be quite honest with you. But I've kind of dived into the Kitty configuration file a lot more than the Alacrity config file. But it just goes to show you that Kitty has a lot of options and it has a lot of features, and I dig them, especially the tabs. And then if you go down a little bit farther, you'll actually see a little spot where you can change the color and the font color, the foreground and background color of the tab. So that's what I did here. I just did a gray and white, and whenever I'm focused on a tab, the font color is the gray, and then the tab is white, and then of course when I'm not focused on it, it's the gray, and the font color is actually white. So just kind of so it looks good. I was gonna do, it doesn't really matter. I was gonna do a darker gray for the background, but then you couldn't really see it. All you saw was the font, and I thought it kind of didn't look that good down there. Now, another thing that you can do with Kitty is you can use extensions which are called kittens. I haven't used a single one, but I have heard about it, and it's just something that will allow you to extend Kitty even more than what you can already do with it. So I really like it. I actually really like it a lot. The tab thing, man, it really, I didn't, it's kind of like workspaces. I didn't know, what I was missing until I tried it. Now I could not use a computer without workspaces, just like I don't think I could use one just like I don't think I could use a terminal without tabs. It really does make things a lot, not really easier, but it's definitely helpful. And the only way that you're going to get something like the tabs and the window management on Alacrity is if you use something like a multiplexer like Tmux, right? And that was my thing, was I never felt like I needed tabs like that badly to go and learn how to put Tmux together. So I just never did it. But now with Kitty, it being, the tabs being there out of the box, it's super helpful. All right, everybody. Well, that was the video. That was Kitty. Again, I'm not a developer or anything, so I'm not looking at it from like a normal Linux user's view, right? Or like a power user. I just like Linux, and I use NeoVim to write my scripts, and I use terminals and all that. I am more of a terminal guy than a GUI guy, but it's not like I'm some advanced power user or anything like that, right? But I really do like it. Kitty is really nice. Those tabs are so good. The thing is when I was on Alacrity, I didn't need them that bad, or I didn't think I needed them. And since Alacrity doesn't have tabs out of the box, I would have had to go and like figure out Tmux and installed that. And I didn't have any need to do that, so I just never did it. Now with them out of the box in Kitty, I really like tabs. It's kind of like workspaces, right? But that was the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you made it this far, consider hitting that like button. I would really appreciate it because it really helps out the channel way more than you know. Also, if you would like to support the channel in other ways, you can join our Patreon page, which is like the only Patreon page out there that there is no incentive for you to sign up, because I haven't done anything with it, but I will be soon. We're about to hit the 1,000 mark for our 1,000 subscribers, which is awesome, which is why you should hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. But after we hit that 1,000 mark, I'm thinking about creating like some stickers and whatnot, like some TLF stickers, maybe like We the Fraudsters or something. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of something to create, right? I just really like creating things. So I don't know, we'll figure something out. And then also I'm going to start putting my videos up over on Patreon, so then they're ad-free. I know there's no ads on my videos now, at least I don't think there are. But once you hit a certain subscriber count and stuff, you can do all that, the partner program and shit. So I will eventually put ads on my videos if I ever am able to. I'm thinking about putting a video up later on, kind of like an update video of just where I want the channel to go, because I want to do more things than just looking at fucking Linux, right? I don't know, whatever, regardless. We'll talk about all that stuff later. I'll probably make a video about it specifically for it. And it doesn't matter because I'm probably talking to nobody right now, because I highly doubt any of you have tuned in this far, right? So whatever, I'm going to stop talking to myself. If you are here still, that's awesome. We're best friends. And we'll catch you in the next one.